You picked up your phone 11 minutes ago. You told yourself it would be quick. It wasn't. Somewhere between the third notification and the ninth scroll, you lost track of time completely. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're running software that is 2 million years old. Your brain was not built for feeds. It was built for forests. Think about that for a second. Long before screens, before cities, before agriculture, your ancestors spent their days doing one thing over and over, searching for berries in the underbrush, searching for the rustle that might mean prey or might mean predator, searching a landscape that never told them in advance whether the next bush would be empty or overflowing. That uncertainty wasn't a flaw in the system, it was the engine that kept them alive. Here's the strange part. The brain doesn't reward you for finding the berries. It rewards you for looking. Picture an early human moving through tall grass at dawn. She doesn't know what's ahead. Maybe nothing. Maybe a fig tree loaded with fruit. Maybe a snake. Every step forward is a small bet, placed with no guarantee of a payoff. And yet she keeps walking, keeps scanning, keeps searching. Something in her chemistry makes the not knowing itself feel worth pursuing. That something is still inside you, unchanged, humming quietly under every app icon on your screen. In the 1930s, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner ran an experiment that would end up explaining your phone habit decades before phones existed. He put pigeons in a box with a lever. Press the lever, get a food pellet. Simple enough. But then he changed the rule. Instead of a pellet every single time, the pigeons got one at random. Sometimes after one press, sometimes after 20. The pattern was unpredictable. What happened next surprised everyone. The pigeons didn't slow down. They sped up. They pressed that lever more, not less, when the reward became uncertain. Skinner called it a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. You might know it by a simpler name. It's the same principle that keeps people at slot machines for hours, long after they've stopped winning anything worth the time. And it's the exact principle sitting inside every app on your home screen. Your phone doesn't know what pigeons are. It doesn't need to. It was designed by people who studied exactly this kind of behavior and then built a pocket-sized version of Skinner's box. Pull down to refresh. Maybe there's something new. Maybe there isn't. You won't know until you check. So you check, and then you check again 10 minutes later, even though almost nothing has changed. But why does uncertainty feel so good in the first place? Wouldn't a guaranteed reward feel better than a maybe? Decades after Skinner, a neuroscientist named Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan found something almost backwards about how the brain works. He discovered that dopamine, the chemical everyone associates with pleasure, isn't actually the pleasure chemical at all. That it's the wanting chemical. Berridge's research separated two systems that most people lump together. Liking, which is the quiet satisfaction of actually getting something good, and wanting, which is the restless pull that drives you to go get it. Dopamine belongs almost entirely to wanting. And wanting spikes hardest not when you receive a reward, but when the outcome is uncertain. A guaranteed treat barely moves the needle. A maybe sends it soaring. Your brain, in other words, is far more interested in the chase than the catch. That single finding explains something strange about your own habits, if you've ever noticed it. The moment right before you open an app often feels sharper than the moment after. The anticipation carries more charge than the content ever does. You open the message, read it, and feel a small letdown, quickly replaced by the urge to check again for the next one. The reward was never really the message, it was the search for it. Now picture that circuitry, wired into an early human scanning a tree line for movement. A landscape that might hide food, might hide danger, might hide nothing at all. That constant low hum of uncertainty kept your ancestors alert, alive, and searching from sunrise to sunset. It wasn't a design flaw, it was the whole point. A brain that stopped wanting to search was a brain that stopped finding food. There's a piece of this puzzle that goes back even further than Skinner or Berridge. into the field of evolutionary ecology itself. In the 1970s, a biologist named Eric Charnow developed what's known as the marginal value theorem, a mathematical model of how animals decide when to leave one foraging patch and move to another. His research showed that animals, including early humans, are constantly running a background calculation. Is this patch still worth searching, or is it time to move on to the next one? The math is elegant. Stay as long as this patch gives you more than the average patch out there. The moment it dips below that average, leave. Sit with that for a moment. Your brain has an ancient algorithm for exactly this question. Stay or scroll? Stay or scroll? It has been running that calculation since long before there was anything called a feed, weighing effort against reward, second by second, without you ever noticing the math happening underneath. And that's exactly what a feed simulates. Every platform you scroll through is a patch. Every post is a bare bush that might be empty or might be full. The algorithm behind it has learned, often better than you have, exactly how long to make you wait before the next good one appears. Not too short, or the search stops feeling like a search. Not too long, or you give up and leave the patch entirely. It is tuned, whether anyone intended it or not, to sit right at the edge of your ancient foraging instinct, keeping the patch always just barely worth one more look. This is why willpower alone rarely works. You're not fighting a bad habit. You're fighting a system your species spent 2 million years perfecting for a world that no longer exists. The tool that used to help you find food now keeps you searching for nothing in particular at 2 in the morning. Thumbs still moving long after your eyes have started to ache and your body is telling you to sleep. There's something almost tragic in that mismatch. And something oddly comforting too. Because once you see the mechanism, it stops feeling like a personal failure. You are not undisciplined. You are a forager, dropped into an environment engineered to look exactly like the one you evolved for. Except every bush is fake and none of them will ever run out. The patch never depletes. That's the part your ancestors' brains never had to account for. In the real world, searching eventually paid off. Or the patch emptied and you moved on to richer ground. In the feed, it never empties. There is no leaving because there is no bottom and no average to fall below. Think about what that means for a moment. Every foraging system your ancestors ever relied on assumed scarcity, assumed that patches ran dry, assumed that searching had a natural endpoint, one way or another, food or exhaustion or nightfall. Nobody designed your brain for infinite abundance disguised as scarcity. Nobody prepared it for a patch engineered never to feel finished. Look at how many different patches you check in a single day. Email is a patch. Maybe there's good news in the inbox. Maybe there's nothing. Group chats are a patch. Maybe someone responded. Maybe the conversation went quiet hours ago. The news is a patch too, refreshed and refreshed as if the next headline might finally make sense of the last one. None of these behave like the forests your ancestors knew. A forest eventually told you the truth. Empty branches meant move on. Your phone never tells you the truth that plainly. It just keeps the possibility alive, one pixel at a time. Consider the small rituals so many people repeat without ever deciding to. Wake up, reach for the phone before the feet touch the floor. Check, even though nothing could have happened worth checking in the 7 hours you were asleep. That's not a character flaw either. That's a forager checking the patch first thing in the morning, the same way your ancestors might have glanced toward the tree line the moment they opened their eyes, just to see what the day had brought. Notice too how differently this plays out depending on what's in the patch. A feed with almost nothing interesting in it gets abandoned quickly, the same way an empty beery bush gets left behind after a glance or two. But a feed that occasionally unpredictably rewards you with something genuinely funny, genuinely moving, or genuinely useful becomes almost impossible to leave. That unevenness isn't an accident. It mirrors, almost exactly, the uneven abundance of a real landscape, thin in most places and unexpectedly rich in a few, which is precisely the pattern your foraging instincts evolved to chase. So what do you do with that knowledge? You can't rewire 2 million years of instinct by tonight, but you can stop mistaking the symptom for the disease. The pull you feel toward your phone isn't a character flaw. It's the same circuitry that once sent your ancestors out at dawn to search a valley for food. Still running, still searching, just aimed at the wrong target now. Knowing that won't make the urge disappear. But it might change what you do the next time your thumb reaches for the screen before your mind even decides to move it. Some people have started treating their own attention the way an old forager might treat a depleted patch. On purpose, by choice, they leave. Not because the app stopped offering anything, it never will, but because they've learned to notice the moment the searching stops paying off. The same instinct Charnoff modeled decades ago, now aimed inward instead of outward. That shift sounds small. It isn't. It means treating your own attention as something worth budgeting. The way an ancestor budgeted daylight or calories or the risk of wandering too far from camp. It means asking mid-scroll, a question your ancestors asked instinctively without ever forming the words. Is this patch still giving me anything, or am I just here out of habit, hoping the next handful of berries will be the one that finally satisfies? Most of the time, if you're honest, the answer arrives quickly. And most of the time, arriving at that answer is enough to make the phone feel a little lighter in your hand. The pull a little easier to set down. Not because the wanting disappears, it won't. It's 2 million years old and it isn't going anywhere. But because you've named it. And named things lose a fraction of their grip. Because somewhere underneath the notifications and the infinite scroll, there's still a forager in you, scanning the horizon for something worth finding. The horizon just happens to be 4 inches wide now. And it's glowing in the dark, waiting for you to check it. One more time.